Your woodworking project isn't finished until you add a finish. No, that was a bad pun, but I couldn't resist using it. You've spent money on the wood and invested hours of your time cutting, assembling, and sanding, so you're at the ultimate step, choosing and applying the best finish to make your work stand out. I'll discuss the finishes I commonly use in my shop, from acrylic paints to spray paints and finishes and brush-on finishes. There's a vast range of options staring at you from the shelves whenever you visit your local hardware store or home center. I can't possibly cover them all, so I'll cover only the ones I use frequently and comment from my personal experience. Let's dive in, shall we? Another bad pun? I occasionally use acrylic paints for items like Noah and his wife and these trees, part of one of the Ark sets. These paints are child-safe, water-based, easy to use and clean up. Poplar is generally the only wood I paint, and it takes paint nicely. I use it on small items like these where there's more than one color to apply. Masking the trees to use spray paint would be too time-consuming. I sand it to 150 grit to prep the wood. Two disadvantages of acrylic paint are that it raises the wood grain and that it usually takes several coats to completely cover the surface. If you want a smooth surface, you'll need to lightly sand between coats. I use 400 grit sandpaper for this task. The paint dries quickly enough to apply 2 or 3 coats the same day. One of the finishes I use frequently is mineral oil. It's inexpensive, easy to find, and child-safe. I pour a small quantity into a disposable cup and then use a foam brush to apply it to the wood. I use it on the animals from my Noah's Arks as well as on other toys. The oil enhances the beauty of the wood grain and has minimal to no effect on the wood's color. For pieces that are 1/2 inch or thinner, I brush the finish onto one side, then set the item on a sheet of wax paper to dry. When the first side is dry, I flip the pieces over and apply oil to the second side. I've found that for these thinner pieces, it's not necessary to apply oil to the sides. It soaks down from the top and bottom, and the sides are covered that way. For wood 3/4 and thicker, I apply oil to one side, then to the edges, and then I set the pieces aside and finish the second side later. The oil penetrates the wood and dries quickly, so you can easily complete both sides in one day. The reasons I prefer using mineral oil are that it's child-safe, dries quickly, is inexpensive, and has no odor, so you don't have to wear a mask while using it. The disadvantage is that it doesn't provide much protection. This room was my darkroom in the days of film photography, but I converted it into a finishing room. I built a little enclosure to catch the overspray, and it has a Lazy Susan on the bottom level so I can rotate items to spray all sides. There's an exhaust fan to clear the fumes, but I also use, and recommend you use, a proper mask when using any oil-based finish or one with a propellant can. This Noah's Ark wall hanging is a perfect candidate for a spray finish. There are too many nooks and crannies to cover with the finish to reach properly with a brush. I could use a brush-on finish on the Ark and add the animals later, but this is faster and it covers all the surface as well. I've tried gloss and semi-gloss finishes on other projects, but my current favorite is the Minwax Warm Satin Spray Polyurethane. As the name implies, this adds a warm tone to the wood while bringing out the grain's color and adding a protective finish. Polyurethane is basically a liquid plastic. One of the other features I designed for the spray booth is my method of handling the workpiece. I use squares of scrap drywall, place a sheet of wax paper over the top, and then put the item I want to spray on top of the wax paper. When I'm done spraying, I just pick up the piece of drywall, move the item out of the way, and continue with the following item. You could also use plywood or scrap wood. The wax paper prevents the item from sticking to the drywall, and I toss it when I'm done. Another option is spray shellac. This was my favorite spray finish for some time, but I don't use it often anymore. Shellac uses alcohol as the solvent, and it dries quickly to a glossy finish. Perhaps I got away from using shellac because I no longer cared for the glossy finish. Shellac is not as durable as varnish or polyurethane, and it dulls with age. So shellac also changes the color of the wood slightly, and you may or may not care for that color shift. A lot depends on the nature of the project and on your personal preferences. The last spray finish on my list is lacquer. Lacquer is a thin liquid varnish, usually applied by spraying. It dries quickly, is durable and hard-wearing, and can be polished to a glossy finish. Lacquer brings out the wood's grain and beauty without changing the color. For high-volume finishing, lacquer is frequently used with a spray gun, but this isn't practical for me at the small volume of finishing I do. I like to use brush-on polyurethane on flat surfaces, such as this Noah's Ark. It's easy to reach all the interior and exterior surfaces with a brush, as the roof is removable. I use a foam brush and throw it away after use so I don't have to spend time cleaning brushes. Polyurethane comes in water or oil-based versions. The water-based version dries quickly and doesn't change the color of the wood. The oil-based version takes hours to dry and alters the wood's color, but I like the effect. If you use any rags to wipe or clean up the oil-based polyurethane, make sure to handle them properly after use because they can spontaneously combust. I've used both the water and oil-based polyurethane over years of making projects. I'm not sure I can give exact reasons why, but I choose the oil-based product. It's a matter of personal preference, so you'll have to decide for yourself which you like the most. Or maybe you'll like them both and split projects between them. I had some armor seal remaining from another project, and I used that on the raised dog bowl holder that I made a short time back. I'll leave a link to that video in case you haven't seen it. I used a foam brush to apply the finish, but it can be wiped on as well. It's easy to apply, but be sure to dispose of the cloth properly to avoid fire hazard. Armor Seal provides good overall protection, as implied by the trade name, but it has a long drying time and requires a clean application area. It's also much more expensive than the Minwax polyurethane. Those are the finishes I use in my shop. There are, of course, many more choices available, but I limited my discussion to products with which I'm familiar. At the end of each video, I usually mention the finish I used on that project so you have a possible starting place. When the entire object needs to be painted the same color, my first choice is spray paint because it goes on quickly. The disadvantages are the messy overspray, the need to wear a mask, and the time it takes to dry. For items that require more than one color, such as trees, I typically reach for my selection of acrylic paints. They're easy to apply and clean up with water, but they usually require multiple coats to cover the wood completely. Their other disadvantage is that they raise the wood grain, and you need to sand in between coats to obtain a smooth finish. For scroll sawn items with numerous nooks and crannies, I reach for my spray satin polyurethane. At one time I favored spray shellac, but for some time I've been using Minwax spray polyurethane. I usually buy 6 cans at a time to prevent running out in the middle of a project. I started purchasing mineral oil by the gallon rather than a quart at a time as I did for years. This finish is child-safe, odorless, and inexpensive. It brings out the wood grain, but it does change the color of certain woods. For example, it turns the white color of maple slightly yellow. It's perfect for finishing the animals on the many Noah's Arks that I build. For larger projects with flat surfaces, I like to use a brush-on polyurethane. It's easy to apply and it provides excellent protection as it's essentially a liquid plastic. The oil-based polyurethane takes a long time to dry and slightly alters the wood's color, but I like the effect. It's one of the best finishes for furniture because of the protection it affords. I included a chart in the description that provides some basic information on finishes. Hopefully you'll find the chart helpful enough to print a copy for your shop. I'd love to read your comments on the finishes you use. We are unlikely to all agree on all points, but I welcome courteous discussion. Do you use a variety of finishes, as I do? If so, how do you decide which product to use on any one project? I've just completed moving my retail store to a new location, so I'm a bit behind on shop time. However, I hope to catch up and start recording some new videos soon. Until then, suggestions for what to watch next are displayed on the screen, and there are over 200 videos in my current playlists.